My mom's dad, my grandfather, was a car guy. He had several different cars that have different purposes in terms of how he would use them. He had a 1970 Plymouth Barracuda that was vitamin C orange and black, and of course it had a Hemi. He had a 1979 F-150 that was brown and white that he used for work, and he kept that car, that truck, impeccably clean. He had more cars, but the one to me that stood out was his 1984 Lincoln Continental. Now, this car was tone-on-tone, dark blue. It had wire wheels that were blinged out. It had an anti-wedge design line that went from the headlamps to the tail lamps and intersected the door handles. And it had an integrated Continental kit in the deck lid. When he drove this car, when he arrived or appeared in this car, he put on his best attire. He would put on his hat. He'd even wear his cheap cologne. But when he drove this car, he drove it ever so carefully. He would make a turn and really drive it incredibly precise. And even when he landed in his destination, he would pause a bit, let that car run, and then exit. Like in so many things in this life, there is always transition. And when my grandfather passed away, that car was given to my mother. And we drove that car on occasion, and we drove it to church. And it was one of the very first times that I was allowed to lead our family, of course, under the watchful eye of my mother, criticizing every turn that I made in that car. But this car gave me a greater connection with my grandfather. But not only that, it gave me a rite of passage into my adulthood. It was the car that I drove to my high school prom. I believe that with this car, my grandfather taught me the imperatives of one of the fundamentals about car design. Let's fast forward to 2021. Currently, I am now a chief designer at Lincoln Motor Company, and I play a part in bringing these Lincoln products to the marketplace. But it is the lesson that my grandfather taught me about car design that I take with me and I pour into every product that we do at Lincoln. The fundamentals of car design are centered around three things: brand, design, and narrative. And really, in my 23-year career at Ford Motor Company, it's oscillated between mainly brand and design. And when I use the word brand, I'm really referring to morals that we stand for. And when I use design, I'm talking about done with intent. Now, these are very liberal definitions at the moment, but we will get to the key ingredient, which is narrative. Let's talk brand first. Brand, of course, when we're talking about design, there's always an identity with the logo. There's, of course, the tenets, our philosophy in which we stand for, and then the mantra, which is used as a repeated phrase that really goes at the heartstrings of our customer. So let's do a case study. Of course, everyone knows that the Lincoln Star is a guiding principle. We are known for being named after Abraham Lincoln. The philosophy with our brand has always been about being human. And then, of course, the repeated phrase that we're using at the moment is the power of sanctuary. But there is a fantastic metaphor that we're using here in this imagery where we're using this baby in a crib. The brand, of course, our products, of course, are the crib and the serenity that our customers feel on the inside, which is a baby. But don't drive while sleeping. So brand is powerful, but brand alone is not enough. Of course, let's talk about design. Now, this time, when we refer to design, we're talking about the artistic elements that designers get the opportunity to manipulate as they create geometry. So there are 5 elements. There is proportion, and we're talking about, when we say proportion, we mean the package. And when we talk about form, we're talking about the attire or the fashion or the geometry. Graphics, of course, is the brand, line, and then there's color and texture. Let's do a case study again. The silhouette of the car, the wheels, the package, and the occupant location is really defined in this product. And of course, this is a 3-row product, but the wheel placement, the overall package demonstrates or illustrates said purpose of said product. When I say the surface, the form, This is the fashion. This is the surface that needs to echo the philosophy. If we tell you we're a human brand, then our surface, our form language needs to communicate that clearly. The surface can clearly communicate the ethos of our brand. There's a reason why cars in the 50s, the cars in the 70s look the way they do, because they were fashioned to be that way. Graphics are the two-dimensional elements that communicate to the customer what brand we're specifically talking about. For example, the headlamps, the tail lamps, the grill communicates the brand, and that philosophy, the ethos, has to be communicated with two-dimensional graphics applied to a three-dimensional surface. And then, of course, the emphasis, the mood, of course, is emphasized by the lines and the details that we put in surface or the things we decide to highlight with chrome or bright finishes. And then, of course, the culmination of all these elements together give you the mood, give you the emotion that we were evoking with said product. So let's talk about the key ingredient. I showed you earlier that there were 3 fundamentals to car design. The reality is that in everything we do, every design we make, narrative has to be even more important. And even this graphic alone does not communicate how significant narrative is. Narrative has to be integrated into the entire design process of said product. It has to be in the brand. It has to be within design. It has to clearly be communicated. And when we say narrative, we do not mean just mere storytelling. It is the customer intimacy. When my grandfather was role-playing in his bad clothes, or his good clothes and his bad cologne, he was role-playing with that product, and that was the narrative that made his life rich. When we use narrative, we have to, as a brand, need to know their dreams, but their aspirations. When he would wear those types of clothes, he was presenting himself in a way to be accepted by his tribe. Narrative is a bit of fantasy. And when he would show up, he would want to show his better self. That's how important narrative is in terms of creating product design. And of course, we want them to be accepted by their tribe. When narratives are applied through the entire product creation, it allows us to see our customers in stark and entertaining ways. My grandfather knew instinctively. He knew that cars were more than a tire, but they can be leading characters and add more depth to our own personal personas. He may not word it that way, but cars can assist the feeling of occasion. And if we as designers can capture that emotion with shape and form, we can create something more meaningful in our products. But we can capture a memory. Remember, people will never remember all the things we orchestrate and write and we say to them, but they will never forget how we made them feel. Brand matters. Selecting products that align with your personal ethos aids in making your life more grand and can give our life richness. There are a ton of, the definition of a car is being modified and changed as we live in these modern days. We all know that autonomous is coming. Electrification products are here. But as designers, we have to always keep the human at the center. We have to remember that cars move people, but can we design cars that people are moved by? Thank you.